Gentlemen, we've been conversing behind stage for about a half an hour now. I'm really excited for this panel. Luke, I'm going to start with you. I think your work as an independent journalist over more than a decade now has really highlighted some of the rot that exists in the system, going all the way back to 9/11, financial crisis, COVID. I think throwing it to you, what have you observed over the last 14 years about the waning credibility of institutions and how money is corrupted?
That's a very easy question. I like that. I'll take it. There's talk in this like crypto Bitcoin space about people being rugged. I'm like, have you heard of what happened after 9/11 with the biggest transfer of wealth in recorded American history, with the Pentagon missing trillions of dollars? People are saying, oh no, but this other crap coin is going to take your money. Have you heard of what happened in 2008? Have you heard of what happened in COVID? I think it's pretty clear that the institutions have been robbing us blind. We have been screwed over, and they are the ones rug pulling all of us. And Bitcoin is the alternative to finally some of us uplifting ourselves from this global Ponzi scheme that all of us are forced to live into by these predators, a part of the banking class that are also very well connected to the Epsteins and other satanic pedophiles out there. Let me just go there and start it off that way. But it's pretty clear as day. The system is rigged, and alternatives like Bitcoin are the answer. And that's why I've been very bullish on Bitcoin from the very beginning. It's a beautiful technology. I hope it's a rebellious technology, and I hope it continues to be a rebellious technology, because the institutions are going down, and we're going to see the collapse of the establishment within our lifetimes a lot sooner than a lot of people expect. And we have to make sure that Bitcoin is not going to be part of those institutions, the establishment. It has to be the rebellion technology. It has to be the technology that stands outside of the status quo, which is more important than ever now.
Dr. Malone, you've been really focused on the medical establishment over the last 5 years specifically. I mean, your whole career, but we were talking about a Rasmussen poll that came out that you're writing about right now that really highlights that the credibility of the medical establishment is crumbling before our eyes.
So Rasmussen Reports has just published about an hour ago the outcome of their latest poll looking at general U.S. citizen support for the idea that myopericarditis is associated with vaccines. It's now at 51%. It's bipartisan. There's a split. About 38% Democrats are supporting that, a large number of Republicans, and about 45% of independents. So what this illustrates is that the strategy of Ron Johnson and Secretary Kennedy of staged deployment of information, much like what happened with the Twitter files, in order to shift to public opinion, is really working. And as far as I'm concerned, I know there's a lot of people that are upset because we haven't seen an immediate withdrawal of these gene therapy-based products from the market, but the political realities are really complex, and that may not be an excuse, but it's the reality in D.C. We have a president who is really having to be dragged to the altar on this, and as far as I'm concerned, the changes that are occurring are monumental, and they're extremely fast, much faster than I expected. So I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. And what this suggests, and there's another associated poll that shows broad bipartisan support for the MAHA agenda, including general health issues, food supply, food purity, etc. That's a strongly bipartisan movement. And what I think I'm seeing is the emergence of a new political alignment that many of us have been anticipating, where, including Elon, when he talks about left versus right and how he was abandoned by the left, essentially, that everything shifted far left under the Biden administration. I think that what many people have been hoping for, what I've been hoping for, is a realignment around medical freedom, around libertarianism, and the corruption and lies that have become so evident during the COVID crisis, I think are fueling that. So the fragmentation of society is real, but I do see signs that we may be able to come together as a society around some new principles. And of course, Bitcoin is at the center of that as a fundamentally libertarian, freedom-based financial system.
And I think with the social media age and independent blogging, independent media more generally, independents have had an outsized influence on the public discourse around all of these topics. Do you think we're at or close to a critical tipping point where independent media sort of dominates and fully takes out mainstream media?
100%. I mean, we just saw what happened in the last election. It was independent media versus P. Diddy's party list and Epstein's client list, and the corporate media, and all the celebrities, and all the musicians, and all of that failed because of people trying to have honest, genuine conversations about things like individual liberty and freedom and personal responsibility. Those conversations were far more important than Beyonce or Rihanna being shoved onto the stage for millions of dollars in order to shill and promote a degenerate drunk candidate that was slurring her words on stage, who previously took the place of a guy who pooped his pants nonstop. What we saw is an evolution, and we're seeing it today. Because what we're seeing today also isn't just bootlickers. And there are some bootlickers, let's be granted. There's some people that, of course, put away their morals, put away all of their virtues, and they kind of shill a little bit. But vast majority of the space is filled with authentic people having real conversations that they're not afraid to have. And those conversations that they're having are the at most critically important right now when it comes to, of course, even challenging the current administration that's in power right now and being able to say, hey, where's that client list? You know, then this is why people resonated with alternative independent media more, because if this was, you know, the Biden administration, they wouldn't be asking that question. But we, as independent media, we don't care if we ruffle some feathers. The truth matters. Independence matters. Freedom matters. And we will get to the bottom of it because we're willing to fight for it, even if it means ruffling some feathers. So I think seeing the kind of echo chamber, there's a lot of people also taking money to shill certain ideas, like promoting sugary Cokes, a part of SNAP benefits for some strange reason. I don't know. People see through that automatically.
$1,000 a post.
Exactly.
$1,000 a post to conservative influencers
Yep.
to push the agenda through grassroots, fake AstroTurf organizations to push the agenda of the sugary cola manufacturers.
And that's what corporate media does every single day. And then the second independent media does it, everyone calls it out. So this is why I love this space. It's a very tumultuous space. It's a very interesting space, but it's a space where if you're not genuine, if you're full of shit, people will call you out on it right away and it will expose you. And I think that's beautiful and I think that's amazing. And that's the echo chamber and that's the society that I want to be a part of.
So, Luke, I'm going to, forgive me, I'm going to push back on you. I think that up through the election was we may look back on that and see and perceive that as a golden era for social media, where suddenly there was this surge in power and influence. But here's the counterpoint. 2 days ago, Elon Musk posted a statement, are there any real people left on the internet? We are being flooded with AI-driven bots that are pushing agendas, and they are designed to splinter us as a society. They're designed to further degrade and splinter the internet, and they're becoming dominant voices. And here's the thing, I spoke about this yesterday at the Whale Room. Bitcoin, in a sense, is very much a commodity. It's many things, but a commodity is one of them. And it is susceptible to manipulation through technologies that are also used to manipulate stock prices, the classic pump and dump strategy. And the Bitcoin community needs a stable currency. It's certainly great that it's appreciating the way it did and is currently, but what it doesn't need is these volatility fluctuations that are driven by AI bot armies advancing short-term interests of hostile third parties. And what I'm afraid we're seeing is that classic social media is increasingly contaminated by these agents that are functioning to advance psychological warfare technology to manipulate public opinion on a routine basis. And but consistent with your point, there are some forms of social media where people like yourself can express in a longer format your opinions, and the viewer or the listener or the reader can make an evaluation of whether or not you have integrity, whether or not you are being genuine. And I think it's those types of social media that have to come to dominate the kind of short, dopamine hit driven platforms like Facebook, was just so out of date, TikTok, X. I think they're going to become obsolete.
Yeah. I think what you're describing is what Yuri Bezmenov talked about. Same with Zbigniew Brzezinski in the Grand Chessboard as well, specifically describing these kind of technocratic dystopian states, which I'm absolutely 100% in line with you about. They've been doing it since 2004. I've heard about this ever since specifically 9/11. The Israeli military, the American military had individuals that were online seeding comments, seeding views in order to push particular viewpoints on the general public. That has been also called out. But now with AI, it leaves us in a very complicated scenario where I think soon it's going to be very difficult to decipher what is real and what is not. But going into this space, this is why individuals matter, your virtues matter, who you are matters, and I still think, and I want to think, humanity will win, and I think we have to have that viewpoint, even though we do have to address the problems that you're addressing.
But the risk in this space, and I'm seeing it happen with a number of influencers, is that these bot armies are driving people to extreme positions because they want to get clicks, likes, and follows and monetization. If you don't have a soul, if you're not guided by some core principle, then you are highly susceptible to this kind of manipulation. I think that also relates to the Bitcoin community.
It creates a smarter community because I think a lot of people are now realizing this, especially with you bringing this issue up. But as far as rug pulls, I think the U.S. Federal Reserve conducted the biggest rug pull against the American people. And I think when we look at the corruption levels and the theft levels, there's a far more theft within the banking system than there is. But this is a problem that does need to be addressed, and I agree with you.
Well, I think Bitcoin could play a role here, particularly with this AI and this bot problem that exists. And we're seeing it on protocols like Nostr, which leverage private-public key cryptography. If you put a note out there, you need to sign a private key proving that you actually sent it. So if you send a note, it's associated with your private key, it came from me. And then on top of that, it's implemented Bitcoin as well, and it's not there yet, but you can imagine a world where if these bots want to reply to something to push a certain agenda, they have to attach a microtransaction to it. And at that point, the cost of doing that at scale becomes very costly. And so you can disincentivize it with Bitcoin integrating the payments.
Well, consistent with what you're saying about basically tagging media with a tool or a flag that can identify real content versus synthetic content, we now have the kind of democratization of incredibly powerful AI tools for generating video content and image content. And we're now at a space where, within months, users are going to be faced with a perplexing array of seemingly real media. You were talking before we were out here about skepticism concerning this suddenly available media that is going to become deployed for all of us, having to do with the Jeffrey Epstein, quote, suicide. I mean, where did that come from? And how can any of us even believe that in the current age? That's just the tip of the spear. We're going to see that in all aspects of things that we had previously relied on as, being able to see someone's face and their expression. That's all going to be synthetic now. How do we tell what's real and what's synthetic? How can blockchain and Bitcoin enable that so that consumers can make an assessment whether they're being played, or whether they're encountering something real. Is that kind of what you're touching on?
Yeah, yeah. I think Bitcoin could play a role, whether it's attaching microtransactions to messages. There's companies like Simple Proof that, that are using open timestamps to hash records into Bitcoin's blockchain, so you know that something happened at a particular point in time. So on this Epstein video, which came out of nowhere, it seems like if we implement this technology, you could prove that that record existed in the past, so you have more certainty that there could be validity behind it. But we don't have that in this.
I think skepticism is going to be your best friend, especially with the very strange world that we're entering with artificial intelligence. Conspiracy theories are just kind of obvious kind of observations that the government doesn't like. And I think we're entering into a new realm, into a new world where decentralization is truly something that all of us need to focus on. Focus on your relationships, your family members, your neighbors. That is going to be more critically important than ever, especially with the AI kind of technocratic advancement coming our way that's going to disrupt our society in ways that we still can't even perceive. And I understand, Robert's point, and that form of psychological forms of warfare have been implemented for about 15 years now. And I would argue that they have been at play, but it is a constant battle, battling these types of bad ideas with good ideas. But I think when we really kind of home in at what's happening, because it's going to be monumental institutional failures that people still do not grasp how severe, how vast, how insane it's going to be, and just a lot quicker than you expect it to be. What you're going to be left with are your relationships. Social media has a way of kind of connecting but disconnecting us. So I think if there's one thing that I could espouse here, because I know this is a Bitcoin conference and everyone loves their, Bitcoin and their tech, put it down for a little bit, get to know people, start to have real relationships, start to grow food, and start to understand that the world as we live it is going to be totally different than it is now, and start preparing for it by having social currency and people in your life that you could depend on and that you could help when they need your help as well.
Another way of saying, go touch grass. Go touch grass. We've got a few minutes left here. Are you optimistic, pessimistic, neutral on the future based off of everything we discussed? Is this an incredibly opportune time or a time to be worried?
We're fucked. We're fucked. It's hard not to say that. I always love, I love to have a positive mindset, and I believe in visualizing the good things in life and appreciating the good things in life and having gratitude, and I think it's absolutely critically important. But there is a storm coming. There is a storm brewing that will shake up everything. And I think right now is the time to really kind of face reality. It's the time to face the hard truths of what's really happening here and to prepare accordingly. Prepare through those social circles, prepare through family members, through neighbors, through being there for yourself. Because, again, I would love to give you the hunky-dory, everything's going to be peachy, everything's going to be fine, but I would be full of shit if I told you that. And I don't want to do that. I want to tell you the real truth because that's what's happening in my mindset. In my mindset, okay, now's the time to really smarten up. Now's the time to really hone in on you, your skills, and what you could provide the people around you.
Okay, I'm going to give a counterpoint. I think we're entering into a period, I think we can both agree, of profound disruption. Disruption will become the dominant force as we move forward over the next few decades. That we can all agree on. With disruption comes opportunity. The opportunities here, personally, financially, in terms of community, etc., are profound. This is the essence of Bitcoin. The Bitcoin world is a rapidly emergent, disruptive solution to a core problem.
It's based on liberty and rebellion.
And we're going to be presented with business opportunities like we've never seen before, frankly, because we're going to be in a period of major flux, major change. You're talking about whole industries going obsolete on a moment's notice. All of us have lived through a period where we have experienced disruptive technology and the obsolescence of key industries again and again and again. in every field around us. And those that are in this community are basically the adapters and survivors that have learned to be agile, to have a broad base of skills that will allow you to adapt to changing conditions. And personally, I love that. I love periods of change. I love dynamic environments. I really don't like static situations in which you get a structure and hierarchy and there's nothing to be done about it. This is a period that we're moving into of enormous opportunity and change, but it does require that there be some economic tools that allow for exchange between communities and individuals. And that's the power here. This is an amazing tool that's been created. And as J.D. Vance put it, this is emergent from American innovation. I think everybody here deserves a pat on the back, and don't get lost in the nattering nabob negativity. You know, look to this bright future and this opportunity that we have to participate and innovate in a period of dynamic change.
Rebel and decentralize as soon as possible.
Fix the money, fix the world. Thank you, gentlemen.